During World War II, fighter aircraft dominated the skies. This video breaks down the war's most important fighters, categorized by the nations that built and flew them. Starting off with United States, Bell P-39 Airacobra. This was an unconventional American fighter. Its engine was mounted behind the pilot. Power was channeled through a long drive shaft. This allowed for the placement of a large 37mm cannon in the nose. It was highly effective at low altitudes, especially for Soviet pilots. Bell P-63 King Cobra. This was an improved, larger version of the P-39. It fixed many of the Airacobra's flaws, especially stability. Most production units were sent directly to the Soviet Union. They proved highly successful on the Eastern Front. Now, this is the Brewster F-2A Buffalo, a chunky early monoplane carrier fighter. It was robustly built. However, it was already obsolete by 1941. It performed poorly against the highly maneuverable Japanese Zero, Brewster F-3A. This name refers to a later licensed production version of the famous F-4U Corsair. It was built by Brewster Aeronautical. This helped supplement Vult's own struggling production capacity. Curtiss P-36 Hawk, this pre-war. American design was known for its durability. While quickly superseded by newer planes, it saw action early in the war, particularly with the French Air Force. Curtiss P-40 Warhawk, the iconic fighter of the Flying Tigers. It was reliable and incredibly tough. Though not the fastest climber, its ruggedness and speed in a dive made it a deadly opponent. General Motors FM Main E1 Wildcat. As Grumman focused on the Hellcat, General Motors took over production of the older F4F. This early version was essential for early escort carrier operations. Next, General Motors FM2 Wildcat, a significant modernization of the Wildcat design. It featured a much more powerful engine. This helped maintain its usefulness throughout the war, especially on smaller carriers. Next, Goodyear FG-1 Corsair. This was Goodyear's production line versions of the famous bent wing fighter. Building it under license ensured massive quantities could be supplied quickly to the US Navy and Marines. Next, Grumman F-3F, the last biplane fighter adopted by the US Navy. It was a beautiful, powerful aircraft. However, it was firmly rooted in the 1930s and obsolete when the war began. Grumman F-4F Wildcat, a rugged, dependable carrier fighter. Its innovative folding wings were key for carrier storage. It used the defensive thatch-weave tactic effectively to counter the faster Zero. Grumman F-6F Hellcat, designed specifically to destroy the Zero. It was rugged, powerful, and forgiving to fly. It achieved the highest kill ratio of any US Navy fighter in the Pacific. Next, Grumman F-7F Tigercat, a massive, powerful twin-engine, naval heavy fighter. It was fast and heavily armed. Although designed too late for widespread combat, it was a beast of an airplane. Up next, Grumman F-8F Bearcat, the ultimate US piston engine naval fighter. It was light and possessed incredible climb performance. It arrived too late to see significant combat during World War II. Now this is the Lockheed P-38 Lightning, the distinctive twin-boom fighter. It was flown by aces like Bong and Maguire. It was highly versatile, excelling as a bomber escort, interceptor, and reconnaissance platform. North American P-51 Mustang, arguably the finest long-range escort fighter of the war. Its Rolls-Royce Merlin engine gave it incredible altitude and speed. It helped secure air supremacy over Germany. Republic P-43 Lancer, a high-altitude predecessor to the mighty Thunderbolt. It was only built in small numbers. It served primarily for training and reconnaissance early in the conflict. Republic P-47 Thunderbolt, known as the Jug. It was a massive, durable fighter bomber. It could absorb staggering amounts of damage. It delivered devastating payloads during ground attack missions. Seversky P-35, an early US Army Air Corps monoplane fighter. It was exported widely. While quickly outdated, it represented a crucial step in modern fighter design evolution. Vought F-4U Corsair, the legendary Whistling Death. Its distinctive inverted gull wings allowed clearance for the massive propeller. It was deadly in the hands of Navy and Marine pilots. especially late war. Now let's look at Germany. Dornier Do 335 Pfeil, the unique arrow. It used a push-pull engine configuration. It was incredibly fast, potentially the fastest piston engine aircraft of the war. It arrived too late to be effective. Focke-Wulf 190, the German butcher bird. This radial-engined fighter was heavily armoured and exceptionally rugged. It excelled at lower altitudes and ground attack roles throughout the war. Focke-Wulf Tar 152, Kurt Tank's final piston engine masterpiece. It was a high-altitude interceptor refinement of the FW190. It was exceptionally fast but produced in extremely tiny numbers. Focke-Wulf Tar 154, known as the Mosquito due to its wood construction. It was intended as a fast night fighter. However, technical flaws and material shortages doomed the project. Heinkel 100, a very fast but fragile pre-war German fighter prototype. Though extremely quick, it lost the vital production contract to the Bf 109. Heinkel 112, a strong rival to the Messerschmitt Bf 109 during the 1936 competition. It was eventually exported to nations like Romania and Spain. Heinkel 162 Volksjäger, the People's Fighter. This was a tiny, hastily built jet. It was meant to be flown by relatively inexperienced pilots in a last-ditch defense. It was fast but extremely dangerous. Heinkel 219, an outstanding German twin-engine night fighter. It pioneered features like the ejection seat and effective radar integration. It was highly successful despite low production. Next, Messerschmitt Bf 109, the primary fighter of the Luftwaffe for the entire war. Versatile and constantly upgraded. It was one of the most widely produced aircraft in aviation history. Messerschmitt Bf 110 Zerstörer, the Destroyer. A twin-engine heavy fighter. It dominated early on. However, it proved highly vulnerable to modern single-engine fighters during the Battle of Britain. Messerschmitt 163 Comet, the only operational rocket-powered interceptor. It was blindingly fast. However, its volatile fuel and extremely short endurance made it highly hazardous for its pilots. Messerschmitt 210. The original ME-210 program was deeply troubled. It was significantly improved and modernized into the ME-410, which acted successfully as a bomber destroyer. Messerschmitt 262 Schwalbe, the world's first operational jet fighter. It was revolutionary and devastatingly fast. It instantly dominated the skies when it encountered Allied piston fighters. Up next, Messerschmitt 410, a vast improvement over the problematic 210 design. This twin-engine heavy fighter and bomber destroyer saw dedicated service on the Western Front. Next up, Soviet Union, Lavochkin La-5, a vital Soviet development. It combined the rugged Legy G3 airframe with a new, powerful radial engine. It was an excellent match for the best German fighters. Lavochkin La-7, the final evolution of the La-5 series. It was one of the best Soviet fighters of the war. Its light structure and superb power-to-weight ratio gave it fantastic performance. Lavochkin Lag-1, an early, wooden Soviet fighter prototype. It was crucial in testing out the new construction methods that paved the way for the more successful Legy G3. Lavochkin Lag-3, the wooden Soviet fighter that earned the unflattering nickname Varnished Coffin. It suffered from being overweight and underpowered early on. It was later dramatically improved. Lavochkin La-9, a high-performance Soviet fighter that entered service right at the conclusion of the war. It was a potent successor to the La-7. Then, Lavochkin La-11, another late-war post-war development. It primarily served as a long-range escort fighter. It was the final evolution of the great wartime Lavochkin series. Mikoyan Gurevich 1, an early high-altitude Soviet interceptor. It was intended to fly high and fast. It proved difficult to handle and required immediate refinement to become operational. Mikoyan Gurevich E3, the refined version of the Mi-G1, it excelled at high-altitude performance. However, it was less effective in the low-level dogfights common across the Eastern Front. Petlyakov PE-3, a dedicated heavy fighter and night fighter version of the P-2 airframe. It was used extensively for defense around Moscow and as a long-range escort. Polikarpov I-15 Chaika, a distinctive Soviet biplane fighter used early in the war. Its gull wing design gave it excellent maneuverability. It was quickly replaced by monoplanes. Polikarpov I-16 Rata, the stubby, groundbreaking Soviet monoplane. It was one of the world's first low-wing fighters with retractable landing gear. It saw intense early combat. Then, Polikarpov I-153 Chaika, the final refinement of the I-15 biplane series. It featured retractable landing gear. It was surprisingly effective in early combat against German monoplanes. Yakovlev Yak-1, the foundational design for the successful Soviet Yak series. It was fast, light, and easy to mass produce. It became a true workhorse of the Soviet Air Force. Yakovlev Yak-3, a dramatically lightened and refined version of the Yak design. Pilots considered it highly maneuverable. It was deadly at low to medium altitudes on the Eastern Front. Up next, Yakovlev Yak-7, originally designed as a two-seat trainer. It was successfully converted into a highly capable single-seat fighter. It was easy to build and maintain in tough conditions. Yakovlev Yak-9, the most numerous and versatile of the Soviet fighters. It could be configured for almost any mission, from long-range escort to tactical ground attack. Now let's look at United Kingdom. Blackburn Rock, a truly ill-fated British naval fighter. It utilised a bizarre four-gun dorsal turret system. It proved slow and completely unsuccessful in combat due to weight and drag. Blackburn Skua, a two-seat dive bomber and fighter used by the Fleet Air Arm. It was relatively slow but managed to achieve the first British air-to-air victory of the war. Now this is the Bolton Paul Defiant, a controversial British fighter design. It relied entirely on a four-gun dorsal turret. It suffered heavy losses in daylight but found limited success as a night fighter. Bristol Beaufighter, the Whispering Death, a superb heavy twin-engine fighter. It was highly effective in night fighting, torpedo attacks and devastating ground strafing missions. De Havilland Mosquito, the Wooden Wonder, an incredibly fast multi-role aircraft. Constructed primarily of wood, it excelled as a fighter, bomber and pathfinder due to its phenomenal speed. The next one, Fairey Firefly, a successful two-seat naval fighter and reconnaissance aircraft. It possessed excellent endurance and visibility, making it key for fleet air arm operations. Fairey Fulmar, a fleet air arm fighter, based on the earlier Fairey battle bomber design. It was durable, however it lacked the speed to compete with dedicated land-based German fighters. Gloucester Gauntlet, an early 1930s biplane fighter. It was completely obsolete by the start of the war. It was quickly relegated to training duties. Gloucester Gladiator, the RAF's last biplane fighter. It saw heroic action in the defense of Malta and Norway. It was rugged but truly outmatched by German monoplanes. Gloucester Meteor, the RAF's first operational jet fighter. Although developed during the war, the Allies purposefully avoided deploying it over Axis territory to maintain secrecy. Hawker Fury Sea Fury. While the Fury was a pre-war biplane, the Sea Fury was an ultimate post-war evolution. It was an ultimate expression of piston power, too late for World War II combat. Now, this is the Hawker Hurricane, the unsung hero of the Battle of Britain. Though slower than the Spitfire, its rugged structure and simple maintenance made it essential. It accounted for the majority of early victories. Hawker Sea Hurricane, the navalized version of the Hurricane. It was often launched via catapult from merchant ships to defend convoys, a desperate but effective measure. Now this is the Hawker Tempest, a significantly improved evolution of the Typhoon. It was exceptionally fast at low and medium altitudes. It was vital in countering the V-1 flying bombs late in the war. Hawker Typhoon, a massive, powerful fighter initially plagued by engine issues. It found its true calling as a devastating ground attack aircraft, earning the nickname Tiffy. Supermarine Seafire, the navalized version of the iconic Spitfire. It was beautiful and fast. However, its weak undercarriage and narrow track made carrier landings treacherous. Next, Supermarine Spitfire, an absolute legend. Known for its elliptical wing and outstanding handling, it symbolized British resistance and underwent constant development throughout the war. Westland Whirlwind, a fast, distinctive twin-engine British fighter. It suffered from severe engine development problems. Only small numbers were produced, serving primarily in ground attack roles. Westland Welkin, a specialized high-altitude interceptor designed to meet a demanding RAF specification. It was technically advanced, but ultimately failed to enter full production. Moving on to Japan, Kawasaki Ki-10, an early, highly maneuverable biplane fighter used by the Japanese Army Air Force. Although outdated, it saw service in the early stages of the China conflict. Kawasaki Ki-27 Nate, an early, extremely lightweight monoplane fighter. It was highly nimble. It dominated the skies early on, but suffered heavily against newer Allied fighters. Kawasaki Ki-43 Hayabusa Oscar, the Japanese Army's primary fighter early in the war. It was comparable to the